Hello, everyone. We'll get started here in a minute. We're going to get started in 1 minute. Right now I'm listening to American Pie by Shia Diamond. If you came to a Pete event, you would have heard her on our pre or post show playlist. We're going to be talking with Charlotte Clymer today, an activist, a veteran, and spokeswoman for the Human Rights Campaign. It is also a Trans Day of Visibility, so we'll be talking about that. Hi, Matt. Good to see everybody again. Hello, Molly. Hey, Eric. Hey, Chris. Where is everybody watching from today? I hope Buddy joins us today. Yes, he's up and down. He doesn't come to the attic very much because it requires a lot of steps. If you have any questions you want to talk to Charlotte about today, just pop them in the comments section. We've got quite a good lineup. Hi, Valerie. Watching from the Netherlands. That's awesome. Oh no, Second Beaver Creek, Ohio. That sounds like the title of a novel. California. Oh, Mom's on. Hi, Mom. Stay home. Such a great song. I love Shia Diamond. I saw her perform at an HRC gala. We added her song American Pie, which we were just listening to. If you haven't listened to it and that was too much for you, go back and listen to it. Phenomenal artist. She was a great pizza porter on the campaign trail. Also just a phenomenal trans woman of color and activist. So we love her, and hopefully we get to have her on again. Oh, Connie Schultz is joining us today. That's fantastic. Hi, Steph, friend from college. Good to see you. Oh my gosh, if Pete was a Harry Potter character, he would be Voldemort. Well, I guess he has the ability to bring people together in certain ways, so you could say that. Good to see everyone here virtually. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to our Pete family who's joining us from all across the country and all across the world. We're going to jump right in and talk to Charlotte Clymer today. We've got lots of questions for her. I want to bring her in though because I want to reflect on something with her. It's been an eventful day, so we're going to add Charlotte. Hi, Gina. Hey!
Hey!
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm going to turn up the volume, though. Okay, there we go. This is my first time doing this, by the way. One of these cool, Insta duo chats.
Yeah. I've got a lot of brightness. Okay, there we go. So first I'm going to...
Okay.
Just a forewarning, I don't know if you'll all be able to hear it, but we live right on the river, and they're building this park across the river, and there's a pile driver going all day, like every 5 seconds. So if we hear it, that's what's going on. Nothing too exciting, but it woke me up. I had like a weird dream this morning where I was like holding onto a door and someone was like pounding on the other side. And then as I slowly woke up, I realized it was the pile driver from across the river. So, well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, yeah. So good to be here, Mr. Boot Edge Edge. I have missed you so much. It's been a long time. We hung out for the first time, I want to say, was it this time last year at Victory Funds Conference?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a year.
What a year it's been, huh?
Honestly, that seems as far away as like the beginning of March. I don't know how it's still March. It's like this month is ridiculous.
This month is the longest decade ever.
I was thinking
You know?
about that today. I was like, this is the same month where like Pete left the race. We got to come home. He did the Kimmel thing, and like I've been to Costco twice. Like, how is that the same month? It's the same month.
It's so true. And it is the worst Women's History Month in modern history, hands down. Like, it's pretty bad.
But we are very, very lucky, fortunate, privileged people. We have roofs over our heads. We have food
That's right.
in our pantries. So we're doing well. So eventful day for me so far. I actually convinced Peter to allow me to buy a new television, which I've been asking for years. And I felt like, we're cooped up. We're watching a lot of Netflix now. Like, we should totally get our new TV. So we ordered it, like used wedding gift cards that we still had to Target, because you don't just use Target gift cards on anything. Like, you
That's
save
right.
them
Nope.
for a special thing. It got delivered today, and the whole thing was just shattered.
No.
And I don't, you know how I feel about Target, and I just, rough spot.
I'm sorry.
Rough life.
I guess they were off target, huh?
Wow.
Okay,
so
don't laugh at that.
we have lots of things to talk about, but I did just want to say right away, like at the top of this chat, I know we have followings on Twitter and Instagram. Some of our followings are at an impasse on politics and issues.
Yeah.
So I just want to start our conversation saying, like, in the end of the race, you were a Warren stan, I believe. I obviously a Pete stan, a little biased. But I think it's really important that, like, especially right now, we all come together. And that's why I'm having you on today, because outside of, you supporting a different candidate or seeing some things a little bit differently than me, I respect and admire you so much for so many things that you do for the LGBTQ community. And I sometimes go over to your page because you're following things that I'm not following, right? And it's really important I think it's just important that we surround ourselves with people who have different views, or even like some of my friends supported different candidates as well. But that's why, I think I value our friendship more than the candidates that we supported, right? Because you have phenomenal contributions to our community and to the conversation at large. So we're going to preface our conversation with that for some of the folks in the comments.
Well, I want to be clear that I'm a Chasten stan. I stand with you because, Chasten, you got thrown. You didn't get thrown. I mean, you agreed, and you and Pete had a conversation and whatnot. But you did enter into the political arena at the highest level with very little experience, and you did incredible. Oh my goodness. You really used your platform for so much good. And I feel like you really rallied millions of people into issues that they normally wouldn't venture into, which I got to tell you, I am just, we're friends, of course, but even aside from that, even aside from our personal friendship, I'm just a fan of what you do. You really put out a spirit of service and kindness and humility into our national discourse.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I always appreciate our opportunities to catch up and chat on the trail. And I think it's really important, especially now, that people are able to like set aside some of their political disagreements and see one another as human beings. And I think that is what our president has done such a good job at, is like getting people to the point of not even seeing like the shared humanity in one another. Like, they can look at someone and see right through them. They don't even see a human being there. And so I think it's really important that we're constantly reaching out and building bridges and agreeing to look people in the eye and say, okay, maybe you and I disagree on some things, but like, let's agree on this. And right now in our political environment, like, we all have to come together and defeat this president. And I look forward to doing that alongside you as well.
I couldn't agree more. And, I got to say, it was a long primary. It was tough for a lot of us, but it's time to come together.
Yeah.
nothing is official yet, but either Biden or Sanders is going to be the nominee, and we have to rally behind someone in order to defeat this White House and have a better vision for America. And I got to say, I had things I liked about every presidential candidate. I had a lot of things I liked about Pete, but I had things that I liked about Warren and Biden and Sanders, and especially Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand, who I've been fans of for a very long time. It's okay to have disagreements. It's okay not to see things the same way. But when push comes to shove, there are tens of millions of people relying on us to get the job done, defeat Trump, and make sure no one is left behind in this country.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, today is Trans Day of Visibility.
Yes.
And a lot of folks have been asking about that. I thought some of the interesting questions that were submitted were folks asking how they can be a better and more supportive ally to the trans community, but then also just talk about what that means to you.
Oh, gosh. Well, visibility is so critical to who we are as trans people, because it is, going into every space as a trans person, being proud of who we are, being authentic, being proud of our, full authenticity. And I would not be out of the closet were it not for all of the trans people who came before me, from, Marsha B. Johnson and Sybil Rivera to Daniel Barone, Sarah McBride, Laverne Cox, Janet Mock. There are so many folks who have, built this mountain of support for us to come after. And so we owe something. Those of us who can be visible owe that visibility to ensure that, the 12-year-old who is in Central Texas or Missouri or California, New York, wherever they are, that they don't feel so alone and fearful in the closet.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to the first question too, on days like today when folks are wondering, how can I be a better ally, which goes beyond like tweeting something or, saying like, happy Trans Day of Visibility to all my trans friends. Like, how can folks get dialed in or do a little bit more, right? How can they walk the walk rather than just talking the talk?
That's a great question. It's a community effort. It's everyone getting involved, regardless if you are trans, non-binary, or an ally to the trans, non-binary community. Everyone has to get involved. And the most important thing by a mile is voting. You have to register to vote, and you have to vote for role equality candidates who will not just leave LGBTQ people behind, but folks of color, women, religious minorities, communities of disability. Everyone who's in a vulnerable community and needs people to register to vote and vote for political leaders who are not going to leave any of us behind. Beyond that, I think, just being very intentional in how you amplify trans issues. One really cool thing that you can do that's very easy, put your pronouns in your email signature and in your Twitter bio, because that is a very easy way to communicate that you are a solid supporter of trans rights, that you are an ally that trans and non-binary people can talk to if they have an issue in their workspace, their school, their community. Just a very easy way to show people that you care.
Absolutely. I was so surprised at one of the events I was at in New Hampshire, where I reverted to, I was trying to get everyone's attention at this, we were writing letters to teachers and a bunch of Pete supporters were there. And I, just reverted to a common phrase that is like ingrained in us when I was trying to get my students' attention. I'd say, ladies and gentlemen, right? Like clap our hands. And this young kid was like, hey, I was wondering if maybe you could consider using gender neutral language when you're trying to get everyone's attention. You could say like, hey, everybody, instead of ladies and gentlemen. And I really appreciated them calling me out on that because I have been so conscious of it ever since. And there are little things that we can do just like that, right? That are more inclusive. And you notice it when you're out and about and folks are always, using terms like that. And it's just such it can be a hard switch, I know for some folks, but it's such an easy thing that you can do to be more inclusive of others.
It's a lot to unlearn too.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear to folks that, trans non-binary people struggle with this too. Like there are, things that we have to unlearn ourselves. I used to say sir and ma'am all the time to everybody. And then I had to kind of back it up a little bit and wonder, there's a place for that. And most of the time you need to approach people in a way that allows them to express themselves in their full authenticity. It doesn't make you a bad person to not understand the proper lingo or the proper terminology, but you have to be willing to learn, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to start somewhere. And I got to say, the way that you were so receptive toward changing the pronouns in your bio, or adding your pronouns to your bio and for the campaign, that was amazing. I reached out to Chasten about adding pronouns to his bio, and he immediately said, yeah, sure, let's do it. Because to him, it was a no-brainer. To the Buttigieg campaign, it was a no-brainer to put themselves out there and be fully trans inclusive in a very affirming and front-facing way.
Yeah, the only thing that was hard about that was character limits.
Yeah.
You can't like just, you can't erase Buddy and Truman, you know?
Did you have like First Gentleman of South Bend or something?
Yeah, I think we shortened it to like First Gen, but we got rid of that now because, you know, that's not part of my bio anymore. So so many more characters.
You're a free man. You're a free man.
Yeah, look out. Okay, so you had
Oh,
mentioned
one more thing. Okay,
yeah.
mention one more thing.
Yeah.
Put your money where your mouth is. You know, if you are a person who has some disposable income, send it to trans organizations. There's a really great there's a really great fund right now in New York that was started by Lorena Borjas, who is a Latina trans woman who died this week from the coronavirus. She had spent decades in advocacy for you know, the New York community, for trans non-binary people, and she started a fund to help with medical costs for trans non-binary people who are struggling with corona or with just the economic fallout from corona. So if you go to the top of my Twitter page, and I'm sure Chasten will tweet that too, there's a GoFundMe right now to support the project that she started before she tragically died this week. So I'd encourage everyone to go support that.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And so you represent the Human Rights Campaign, spokeswoman for the Human Rights Campaign. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what issues you're keeping a close eye on right now, and perhaps if there are any specifically related to COVID-19.
I'm so glad you asked. So this is my last day, in fact, as full-time staff.
Oh my goodness.
As I'm sure you saw somewhere, but I'm going to stay on with HRC through the end of the election as a part-time consultant, because there is so much that we have to work on. One of the biggest things two big things we're looking at right now. Number one are the Title VII cases that are coming down from the Supreme Court. So essentially, in 29 states right now, it is, or LGBTQ people are vulnerable to being fired by their employer solely for being LGBTQ. And now a lot of people say, well, that's just a law on the books. That's not enforced. It is enforced. In fact, 2 gay men and 1 trans woman were fired from their jobs. And those 3 cases have now worked their way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is basically answering that question, whether an employer can fire someone solely on the basis of their gender identity or sexual orientation. And those rulings will be coming down by June. And it's very scary. You know, there's a lot to consider there. There's a lot we have to work on, but just basic non-discrimination protections, which is why we have to fight for the Equality Act, which is a landmark piece of legislation that would finally make federal non-discrimination protections legal across the board.
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. And that's why I appreciate following you and others from HRC, because you help keep us all up to date on that, especially when there's so much information, right? That's why we depend on people to help us sift through that and explain it. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's jump into you're cooped up inside, and I've been asking everyone to talk about what they're reading or making or writing,
Oh, no.
if you're taking on any projects, or just like what you're doing to stay sane. Because I for one am a proponent of like, you don't have to take on new tasks. You don't have to clean the house. You don't have to like learn how to make sourdough bread. No. You can just focus on surviving, right? And like taking care of yourself. So what's going on with you? What are you working on, or what are you just doing to take care of yourself?
Like, okay, I'm gonna be real with you. I haven't had much bandwidth for a lot. So I've you know, my grad school classes are still going. So I'm in 3 grad school classes right now. We switched.
Oh my goodness.
I know. They switched all online. And so Monday through Wednesday in the evening, I go to class online, and it's a lot. And, you know, my professors are wonderful people. They did push back deadlines, but they're still like, got to do this paper, got to do this project. We're going to finish these courses on time. And, you know, God bless them, because that's their job, but it's a lot of work to do. I think to stay sane, though, to just stay in the moment, I've been really binge watching TV that is alternatingly good and bad. So I had never seen Curb Your Enthusiasm before this month, ever. And
Yeah.
I watched the first episode and I was completely hooked. And I just binge watched all of Curb Your Enthusiasm over a 2 week period every season. And I love that show. It is just the silliest, most ridiculous, and yet smart social commentary at the same time. It's just really great.
I have to tell you a story. I feel like I should save these stories for like a table book someday, but it is one of my favorite stories from the campaign trail. So Larry David came to one of Pete's events, and I wasn't sure if he'd get my sense of humor or not, but I thought like whatever, I'll go for it. And so everyone like in the circle was like introducing themselves, or because I was like sitting at like the head of this little table. And you know, there was like very kind, courteous, like I'm so and so, I'm so and so, and then it gets to Larry David, and I was like, "Who are you?" And he was like, "What are you talking about? I'm Larry David." And I was like, I've never heard of you." And he's like, "What?" And like everyone at the table's in on the joke too, right? Like they all get that it's a joke, and I was like, "No, I'm sorry, that doesn't ring a bell. Are you like, do you like write or?" And he was like, "Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm? Have you never heard of that show?" It's like, "Oh, I think some of my friends watch that show. Like, is that on Netflix?" And he was just like in stitches, but I'm glad he got this sense of humor, but it was hilarious to watch him have like a 5 minute panic attack that like I might not know Curb Your Enthusiasm.
And that's so great because that's a recurring theme in the show. Like he'll get in these really terrible situations where someone's upset with him or won't help him, and he says, you know Seinfeld? I'm the co-creator of Seinfeld." And they never believe him in the show. And so he can't play that card, but he always plays it anyway, just in case it might work, and it never does. So
I love it. Okay.
You're the real life example of that now. So
I appreciate it. It's great. He was wonderful. Okay, so a lot of people were getting up in my mentions or on Instagram where I asked for questions about, you had some sort of internet feud that I must have missed about pineapple on pizza. So do you have a questionable take on this issue?
I have the correct take on this issue. Just to be clear, I am a evangelist for pineapple on pizza. There are certain evil people in the world, like Sarah McBride, who is completely against pineapple on pizza because she has no taste. I'm gonna support her anyway because she's an okay person otherwise. But in my humble opinion, the best people are ones who eat pineapple on pizza.
I appreciate that. I love pineapple on pizza, and it's funny that like people get so twisted about things. I think that's just like that's what Twitter's for, though, right? Like
Twitter
people
is
wake
so
up and like, what do I hate today? And
Oh,
like pineapple on pizza and like the conversation about hot dogs being a sandwich. That's hilarious to me. I think we would be better as a country if we had debates on that, like national televised debates. That would be probably more interesting and entertaining. But
we can't do it with politicians though. We got to do it with notable personalities. We got to get
right.
Chrissy Teigen debating Bill Murray on whether or not pineapple on pizza is the correct way to go. I would watch the hell out of that.
Yeah. Okay. If anyone from the major networks is watching, right? If someone from Peacock is on here right now, Charlotte and I get the royalties.
We get the royalties from that. That's ours.
Okay. So before we wrap up, you served in the military. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
A couple folks were asking about what you learned. So, Gracie's question is interesting. She asked, what lessons of common humanity did you take from your service in the military?
That's a great question. Well, I know you don't know anybody who served in the military, so no, not at all. I think examining the parts of our society that need reworking and need improving. The military is a large mirror onto larger society. And although sometimes the military is ahead of the curve, often it's not. When I served in the military, and I'm very proud of my service, you notice things that are not exactly up to our moral and ethical standards. Things like women's rights, LGBTQ rights, racial equality. These things are so important, and it's interesting how often you find they're incongruent with the military's idea that we are all equal and that we all meet a certain standard, right? So serving in the military, I would see things like sexism, white supremacy even, homophobia, transphobia, of course, all these things, biphobia, all these things are not exactly uncommon in the military. But here's what I will say. The vast majority of people I served with were incredible, wonderful people who really did look out for the interests of the community overall. And I think what that shows is that we are an imperfect people. We are an imperfect nation. I don't think we've ever been a truly great nation. But what I do believe is that we are always searching for those higher values that we want to reach. I believe the military can be the greatest force on earth if it were to truly embody the values it espouses. I think, America can be a truly great country if we go after that vision that we constantly push out to the world. We are a nation of liberty and equality. We can get there, but it's going to take effort, and it's going to take a very direct interrogation of our own values, and leaving people behind. Like right now, the healthcare crisis. It's really bad, and we need to realize that our infrastructure overall needs an overhaul. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm grateful for your service in the military and for sharing lessons you learned there. Last question for you.
Okay.
Unless you have questions for me, but
I do.
A really interesting question. And I talked about this a lot on the trail. If 12-year-old you were on this call right now, what would you tell them?
It's worth it. I would tell her that closeted 12-year-old, I'm getting a little emotional saying this. I would tell that 12-year-old girl in Central Texas who was in the closet that if you keep going, if you just keep pushing through these next couple decades, it's going to be worth it. But you have to get through this moment, because if you don't get to truly experience what it means to be fully authentic and beautiful in this world, which is something we all deserve to have. Ooh, Chasten, you got me crying.
I'm sorry. It's a
great question.
Well, thank you for entertaining the question. I think it's so important that we be vulnerable when we're able to. And I talked about this a lot on the campaign trail. And I think some people are really out of touch and don't quite understand the lived experience of LGBTQ people, especially in the middle of the country, especially when you're growing up in places like Central Texas or Northern Michigan, when you're surrounded by people and culture that tells you something about you is wrong or immoral, or you grow up imbibing lessons that tell you like you will never fit in. That we, when we grow up and we're able to be given a platform like you and I have been given, that we use it for good, and we use it to bring people together, and we use it to educate people, and we use it to spread positivity. And I hope that more people are called to that, right? To stand next to one another and say, I might not always get it, but I see your value, I see your worth, and I want to make sure that I get it for you. And there's just, I guess fundamentally, I believe that there's so much good in humanity. And unfortunately, we live in an environment and an ecosystem where a lot of the negativity gets a lot of volume, right? And a lot of attention. But there's so many good people out in the world. And I saw it on the campaign trail, and I know that people are ready to come together and improve this country. I saw it, we were talking at the beginning of the chat, supporting different candidates. When I was in New Hampshire, I showed up at one of the polling places, and there was like a group of Warren supporters under a tent with Pete supporters in the pouring rain, and they were like swapping pizza and donuts. And that just was like a small symbol to me that like people can take care of one, and they want to take care of one another, right? And I believe in the good of humanity, and I believe that's why we're here. And so I appreciate you joining me. I'll give you the last word, unless you have like burning questions.
Well, I just want to point out something to folks, because I feel like, not many people get to know Chasten personally. And because he's a very positive presence on Twitter, he is always optimistic, which is exactly what is needed right now. But you meet Chasten in person. I'm going to embarrass you a little bit here.
Oh, God.
You meet Chasten in person, and he is better, way better than you could ever expect than on Twitter. As good as he is on Twitter, he's even better in person. I remember when I, hung out with you in New York during World Pride last year, and we went to the Stonewall Inn with a couple friends. And you know, you had such this glowing heart of empathy for everyone around you. Whether it was accessibility into the building for Emily, whether it was, you know, mentioning, you know, being kind to our friend who was there, who was a bit famous and got some not so kind comments inside the inn, which was weird to me. But here's the moment that really stood out to me, Chasten. You were talking to me about a moment when you and, you know, Pete had been near a monument or a fountain, and there were some trans women of color who were upset with the campaign. And you didn't complain to me. You didn't get defensive. Here's what you said. You said, I really want to understand where that pain comes from, and I want to be able to do something about it or help the people who are in that kind of pain. And that has always stayed with me. You know, you always operate from this place of deep, deep empathy, and I cannot tell you how much that means to me.
I appreciate that, Charlotte. I think I don't know. I think that's what we're here for. And it's a scary time in our country right now and in our politics. And I want to do the best I can, you know, for the most people I can. And, you know, it can be loud out there, and it can be scary out there, and it can be heartbreaking out there. But, you know, it's so important that if you have the ability, you do the work to bring people together, and you make people feel like they belong. So I look forward to continuing to do that alongside you.
Okay, one last question for you, and
You got it.
You know, go wherever you want with this. But
sure,
what drink should I try that you think I haven't tried yet?
That you haven't tried yet?
Yeah, just try to like, I don't know, come up with a drink that you think I haven't tried yet that I should. A cocktail.
Oh God, I don't like, if I know it works, I stick with it. Like I don't, I don't like have a craft cocktail like book, and I'm like, but my go-to is a French 75, but like break it down, have champagne,
right.
have elderflower liqueur. That's it. Like that's all I need.
Do you remember the punch fountain that we had in that restaurant?
I will never forget that punch fountain. But that had 30 extra ingredients. Like I'm good with 2. Like
oh, me too.
You know, I don't need a salad bar in my drink. Like, you know, but I'm not a whiskey person. I wish so badly that I was a whiskey person, because Pete loves whiskey. He like knows everything about whiskey. When he and I went to Scotland together, we like toured a distillery, and I loved everything about it until the tasting, and then it's gone for me. I can drink like $6 Kirkland wine, and I'm like, whatever, it's great. You know?
I like Scotch a lot. You know, I like vodka. French 75 is my favorite, by the way.
No joke.
Yes, hands down. But I agree with you. Whiskey, I can't really do. I mean, it'll do in a pinch. Like I'll take a shot with a friend if I must. But otherwise, like whiskey is not even in my top 10 go-tos right now. Oh, and by the way, I would like to show off what I'm drinking tonight as a Corona Refresca.
Did you say tonight? It's 3:30.
Sure. That sounds good.
Great. Whatever. I'm not leaving my house.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
That's true. Oh my goodness. Well, thanks for joining me for this conversation. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Much love to you and to Pete and to all the dogs there. So
thank you very much. Take care of yourself.
You too. Bye, guys.
Thanks everyone for joining us for that conversation. I hope you'll take Charlotte's advice, and if you have any disposable income or you're looking to donate to causes that you care about or causes that Charlotte had, go ahead and check out her page. I'm sure she'll be amplifying those. I think it's just a really important moment where we stop and remind ourselves how important it is to take care of one another. And there are so many unique ways that we can do that. You can have a Zoom cocktail party with some of your friends. I've seen really creative ways where people are using Zoom to bring their kids together so that their kids can see one another, because this can be really isolating and scary for them as well. I know a couple of you commented I've dropped the ball over on Twitter with classroom suggestions, so I'll try to put one of those up today, and make sure you're reaching out to the people in your life and figuring out if there's anything that you can do for them. So if you have elderly neighbors who need groceries to be picked up, or you just have relatives who might be getting lonely and a little stir crazy, make sure you're checking in on them, calling them, swinging by. It's okay to wave from the porch as long as you're not hanging out too long. We've been doing that with Buddy and Truman, saying hi to Anne. Let's just make sure that we're reaching out, taking care of one another tonight. And again, please remember that you don't have to put a lot of stress on yourself right now. You don't have to become a master baker. You don't have to take on new projects. You don't have to clean the whole house. It's okay to just take care of yourself first. And that means, you know, getting through it and trying to find some normalcy in it. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks for taking care of one another. I look forward to joining you again tomorrow. Some really exciting guests coming up tomorrow and on Thursday. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Dustin Lance Black and his husband, Tom Daly. They'll be tuning in from London, so they'll be joining us. I think it'll be nighttime over there by the time they join us tomorrow. We'll be talking about Lance's new book, Mama's Boy. We'll be checking in with Tom about the Olympics. And then on Thursday, we'll be joined by actor and writer and hilarious person, Sean Hayes. You might know him from Will and Grace. He's got a new movie coming out this month called Lazy Susan. So I look forward to catching up with him on Thursday. But until then, take care of yourselves. Call your mom. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.